Hello, welcome to the Daily News Ukraine channel. Today is January 12th, and our daily review of news about Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky has discussed security challenges with President of Cyprus Nikos Anastasiadis and thanked for humanitarian aid and willingness to increase sanctions against Russia. Discussed current security challenges with President of Cyprus Nikos Anastasiadis. Thanked for humanitarian aid for Ukraine and willingness to support the increase in sanction pressure on the aggressor country, Zelensky wrote on Twitter. As reported, President Volodymyr Zelensky said that after he returned from Washington at the end of December, he has held about 30 talks with leaders and representatives of partner states. On January 11, the second summit of the Lublin Triangle was held in Lviv with the participation of the presidents of Ukraine, Poland and Lithuania. The Kremlin is planning to create 20 new divisions and expand the Russian armed forces to 1.5 million troops in order to continue its aggression against Ukraine. Brigadier General Alexei Hromov, deputy chief of the main operational department of the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, said this at a briefing, and Ukrinform correspondent reports. To implement their invasion plans, the Russian command has announced large-scale measures to reform the armed forces, in particular, increasing their total number to 1.5 million people and forming at least 20 new divisions. These plans testify to the Kremlin's plans to engage in a long-term confrontation and preparations for large-scale hostilities, Hromov said. However, he noted that the Russian leadership would need considerable time, financial and economic resources to implement such plans. As reported by Ukrinform, the head of the main intelligence directorate of Ukraine's defense ministry, Kirill Budanov, said that due to heavy losses at the front, the Russian leadership decided to launch a new wave of mobilization from January 5. The Russian army once shelled the border areas of Chernihiv region with mortars on January 11. This was reported by the Operational Command North on Telegram, according to Ukrinform. From 7:50 to 8:10, 7 hits were recorded, presumably from a 120 mm mortar, in the area of Senkivka village. There were no reports about losses among the local population or damage to civilian infrastructure. There were no losses among personnel or equipment, the report says. In addition, from 10:20 to 11:20, 12 hits were recorded, presumably from a 120 mm mortar, in the area of Karpovichi settlement. There were no losses among personnel or equipment. There were no reports about losses among the local population or damage to civilian infrastructure. As reported, Russian troops have destroyed or damaged more than 8,000 buildings in Chernihiv region. Over 90% of the affected property is housing stock. In Zaporizhzhia, about 39 private residential houses were damaged as a result of a Russian missile attack. An Ukrinform correspondent reported from the scene that a blast wave knocked out windows and damaged walls and roofs of the houses. Relevant services are now working at the scene following the Russian attack. Volunteers have set up tents where there are hot tea and cookies. City authorities have provided large buses and construction materials. Local electricity supplier Zaporizhzhia Oblenergo said that 200 subscribers were left without electricity due to the Russian attack. Emergency repair works are ongoing. As reported by Ukrinform, in the early hours of January 12, the invaders shelled Zaporizhzhia. The enemy hit infrastructure facilities and private residential houses. Reports have been received from the temporarily occupied city of Mariupol about many helicopters heading to Zaporizhzhia and the village of Urziv, as well as a series of explosions in the city of Berdyansk, Zaporizhzhia region. This was reported by Petro Andriushchenko, an advisor to Mariupol's mayor, on Telegram, according to Ukrinform. Urziv has reported about a series of explosions in Berdyansk. The first 3 occurred at approximately 11 to 12 o'clock, temporarily local time, i.e. 10:00 to 12:00 Kiev time. Now the sounds of explosions have resumed. The day before in the morning, there were reports from Mariupol about excessive movement of helicopters in the direction of Zaporizhzhia region. Later the city reported about the sounds of explosions and small arms. Presumably, this was the work of the occupiers' air defenses, Andriushchenko wrote. He noted that the situation is being monitored, but suggested this indicates that something good is happening. As reported, the invaders are turning Mariupol and nearby villages into a military and logistics hub for the Russian army. The command of the Russian armed forces is strengthening the grouping of troops on the territory of Ukraine by relocating those mobilized from the training grounds of Belarus and Russia to the areas bordering Ukraine. Deputy Minister of Defense of Ukraine Hanna Maliar announced this at a briefing of representatives of the Defense and Security Forces of Ukraine at Military Media Center, Ukrinform reports. The enemy is relocating the mobilized from the training grounds in Belarus and Russia to the combat zone and border areas, and continues to focus the main efforts on Donetsk region. The highest activity of the enemy is observed in the Bakhmut, Lyman and Avdiivka directions, she said. In addition, Maliar reported that as of January 10, the Russian army included about 280 formations, together with the operational reserve, 250 last week. The enemy rotates the units as part of the regional grouping of troops, forces, on the territory of Belarus. According to her, the situation in the areas of hostilities remains difficult. In the absence of the necessary amount of military equipment, the Kremlin actively uses human resources to achieve success on the battlefield, Maliar emphasized. As reported by Ukrinform, in the temporarily occupied territories of Luhansk and Donetsk regions, Russian invaders register teenagers, born in 2005 to 2006, for the draft. Energy engineers, together with local authorities and utility workers, restored more than 55% of energy infrastructure facilities destroyed or damaged by the Russian aggressor. Oleksiy Chernihiv, CEO of Ukraine's Naftogaz, said this in a Facebook post, Ukrinform reports. Despite the shelling, the local government, utility companies and energy workers have already restored more than 55% of the infrastructure objects destroyed or damaged by the enemy, which enable us to supply Ukrainians with heat, he wrote. According to Chernihiv, houses, hospitals, schools and kindergartens, where possible, are provided with heat in full. No matter how much the enemy wants us to freeze, it won't happen. You and I have already gone through the first half of the most difficult heating season in the history of Ukraine. We will definitely go through the second one as well, he summed up. As reported, Russia's massive attacks on Ukrainian energy infrastructure have been ongoing since October 10, 2022. 2 Russian warships are remaining on combat duty in the Black Sea, but none of them is a missile carrier. The relevant statement was made by the Naval Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on Facebook, and Ukrinform correspondent reports. In the Black Sea, 2 enemy warships are remaining on combat duty. In the Sea of Azov, the enemy continues to control maritime communications, keeping up to 2 warships on combat duty, the report states. In the Mediterranean Sea, there are 9 Russian warships, including 5 caliber-type cruise missile carriers, with a total volley of 72 missiles. This morning Ukrainian anti-aircraft gunners have destroyed Russia's Su-25 assault aircraft in the eastern direction and Orlan-10 unmanned aerial vehicle, UAV, in southern Ukraine. The relevant statement was made by the Air Force Command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on Telegram, and Ukrinform correspondent reports. In the morning of January 12, 2023, the air defense missile units of the Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine destroyed Russia's Su-25 assault aircraft in the eastern direction and Orlan-10 operational tactical level UAV in southern Ukraine, the report states. A reminder that, between February 24, 2022 and January 12, 2023, Ukraine's defense forces destroyed 285 enemy aircraft and 276 helicopters. On January 11, 2023, 2 civilians were killed and 8 injured in Russian attacks on the territory of Ukraine. The relevant statement was made by Deputy Head of the Office of the President of Ukraine Kirilo Tymoshenko on Telegram, and Ukrinform correspondent reports. According to the data from regional military administrations, 1 person was killed and 5 injured in the Kherson region, 1 killed in the Donetsk region, 2 injured in the Zaporizhzhia region and 1 injured in the Dnipropetrovsk region. A reminder that, on January 11, 2023, Russian troops opened fire on 9 regions of Ukraine. Casualties among civilians were reported. Photo, illustrative, Kirilo Timoshenko's Telegram channel. Today we were talking about those news. Zelensky discusses security challenges with President of Cyprus. Kremlin planning to create 20 new divisions, expand army to 1.5 million troops, general staff. Russians shell Chernihiv region with mortars. Russian shelling damages 39 houses in Zaporizhzhia. Many Russian helicopters heading to Zaporizhzhia through Mariupol. Andriushchenko. Enemy relocating those mobilized from Russia, Belarus training grounds to combat zones, border areas. Energy workers restore 55% of damaged infrastructure facilities in Ukraine. 2 Russian warships on combat duty in Black Sea, none of them carrying missiles. Ukrainian forces destroy Russia's Su-25, Orlan-10 UAV. 2 killed, 8 injured in Russian attacks on Ukraine over past day.